working to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
Good evening, I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching ASEAN in Focus on tonight's headlines. Holiday floods in the Philippines forced the evacuation of nearly 46,000 people from their homes. The Filipino community in the U.S. is advised to monitor and make necessary preparations as a powerful snowstorm sweeps through the central and eastern areas. And rescuers have called off the search for bodies after a massive pre-dawn landslide blanketed a campsite north of Malaysia's capital, killing 31 people. And Taipei's defense ministry said China deployed 71 warplanes in weekend military exercises around Taiwan, including dozens of fighter jets in one of its biggest daily incursions to date. First in our news, civil defense officials said 2 people were killed, 9 others were missing after heavy seasonal rain inundated parts of southern region of Mindanao. The Coast Guard said it rescued members of more than 24 families in Osamis City and Clarin Town at the height of the flooding. Take a look. And here are images released by the Coast Guard showing its orange-clad rescuers cradling toddlers blocked from homes in waist-deep floodwaters. The central and southern Philippines have been hit with bad weather as the disaster-prone nation of 110 million people began a long holiday weekend. Millions of people traveled to their hometowns for family reunions during this period. The Coast Guard also said strong winds and big waves sank a fishing boat on Christmas Day off the coast of the central island of Leyte. 2 crew members were killed, 6 others rescued. The Philippines is ranked among the most vulnerable nations to the impacts of climate change. Scientists have warned that storms are becoming more powerful as the world gets warmer. And the historic deadly storm that hit the U.S. on Christmas Eve. More than 100 million people now under some type of weather alert, with weather-related deaths rising to at least 31. A crisis situation was unfolding in Buffalo, New York, western New York, where a blizzard has left the city marooned, with emergency services unable to reach high-impact areas. Let's listen in.
The suburbs of Buffalo as well as the city itself, and it is devastating. It is going to a war zone, and the vehicles along the sides of the roads are shocking. It's not just small vehicles, it is literally snowplows. It is major size recovery vehicles and utility vehicles and tow trucks. Lawyers, we know how to get through it, but we're still in the throes of this very dangerous, life-threatening situation. Just because people might see the sky a little bit today, those storms, the wind, the velocity, the volume, it's coming back. It's going to come back tonight. So the number one message I want reinforced by the people with me here today, including Steve Nigrelli, the superintendent of New York State Police, is that you need to stay off the roads.
And as mentioned earlier, 100 million people under winter weather alert. Coast to coast, the storm, one of the fastest in decades, forced the cancellation of more than 2,400 flights on Sunday, in addition to some 3,500 scrapped Saturday and nearly 6,000 Friday, according to tracking website FlightAware.com. Travelers remain stranded or delayed at airports throughout December 25, including in Atlanta, Chicago, Denver, Detroit, and New York. Road ice and whiteout conditions also led to the temporary closure of some of the nation's busiest transport routes, including the cross-country Interstate 70. The extreme weather has severely taxed electricity grids, with multiple power providers urging millions of people to reduce their usage to minimize rolling blackouts. At one point on Saturday, nearly 1.7 million customers were without electricity in the biting cold, according to tracker poweroutage.us. In British Columbia, Canada, a Saturday bus rolled over, believed to be caused by icy roads, left 4 people dead and sent 53 to the hospital, including 2 still in critical condition early Sunday. Hundreds of thousands were meanwhile left without power in Ontario and Quebec. Many flights were canceled in major cities, and train passenger service between Toronto and Ottawa also suspended. Meanwhile, the Filipino community in the U.S. is advised to monitor and make necessary preparation as this powerful snowstorm sweeps through the central and eastern areas. Take a look. At least 13 weather-related fatalities were reported in Oklahoma, Kentucky, Missouri, Tennessee, Wisconsin, and Ohio as the storm engulfs and brings dangerously cold wind chills. The Philippine Embassy in Washington, D.C. advises Filipino communities on the massive winter storm to monitor the weather, undertake all necessary preparations, and heed the warnings of local officials, according to the embassy in an advisory released on Saturday. The National Weather Service warned that the wind chill would cover nearly half of the U.S. population as a once-in-a-generation storm brings snow, wind, ice, and frigid temperatures through the holiday weekend. Blizzard conditions could reduce visibility to 0, and the public is advised to refrain from going out unless absolutely necessary. And rescuers have called off the search for bodies after a massive pre-dawn landslide blanketed a campsite north of Malaysia's capital, now killing 31 people. According to police, 92 people, including dozens of children, were sleeping at the unlicensed campsite at an organic farm in Batangkali, Selangor State on December 16, when tons of soil and mud thundered down the hill. Many of the victims were families enjoying year-end holidays. 2 of the deceased, a mother and her toddler daughter, were found hugging each other, while a man was uncovered still clutching his dog. The farm didn't have a license to operate a campsite, according to authorities. Landslides are common in Malaysia after heavy rains that regularly punctuate the end of the year. Meanwhile, 3 more bodies have been recovered from the waters after a Thai warship went down in the Gulf of Thailand a week ago. The death toll has now risen to 18. The HTMS Sukhothai sank on December 18, roughly 37 kilometers off Thailand's southeastern coast, with a massive rescue operation managing to pull 76 crew alive from the waves. Now, the Navy said 11 members of the 105-strong crew are still missing. The vessel, a corvette, among the smallest of military warships, ran into trouble after its electronic system was damaged. On Tuesday, Admiral Colentis Novigaruta called the incident one of the most severe tragedies in the Navy's history. In tonight's other news, Taipei's defense ministry said China deployed 71 warplanes in weekend military exercises around Taiwan, including dozens of fighter jets in one of its biggest daily incursions to date. The People's Liberation Army said it had conducted a strike drill on Sunday in response to unspecified provocations and collusion between the U.S. and the self-ruled island. Data from Taiwan's defense ministry showed those drills were one of the largest since they started releasing daily tallies. In a post on Twitter, Taiwan said 60 fighter jets took part in the drills, including 6 Su-30 warplanes, some of China's most advanced. Moreover, 47 of the sorties crossed into the island's air defense zone, the 3rd highest daily incursion on record, according to AFP's database. Taiwan lives under constant threat of invasion by China, which claims the self-ruled democratic island as part of its territory to be taken one day. He's one of the world's worst and most notorious serial killers. Now the man known as the Serpent has been freed from a Nepalese prison and has arrived in France. Charles Sobraj preyed on Western tourists in Southeast Asia, and for years he managed to evade police. Let's listen in.
When I came in, I didn't do anything. And that case that I was in, the UN, the Human Rights Committee, they have declared that they are in violation of ICCPR. I am innocent in those cases, okay? So I don't have to feel bad for that, for good. I'm innocent. It was based on the fake documents.
Sobraj drugged, robbed, and murdered. Sobraj, who was portrayed in the Netflix BBC series The Serpent, has been linked to more than 20 murders across Asia in the 1970s. Sobraj evaded police for years until he was locked for life in 2004, charged with the murders of 2 tourists in Kathmandu. After 19 years, the killer walked free and has arrived in France. The 78-year-old's release was ordered by Nepalese police on the ground of his good behavior and his bad health, plus the fact that he served almost all of his sentences. Sobraj confessed to the murder of 12 mainly Western tourists in Southeast Asia in the 70s. He was named the Serpent, a name stemming from his reputation for disguising himself. He spent 20 years in a prison in India and 20 more in Nepal. The cold-blooded killer now ordered to leave the country. Nearly half a century after he sowed fear along the 1970s hippie trail, French serial killer Charles Sobraj, the Serpent of the hit TV drama serial, still haunts the lives of those who crossed his path. Watch this.
Les amis sont toujours les bienvenus à la maison.
What's wrong with us?
I work for the Dutch embassy.
Their families haven't heard from them in over 2 months.
Yes? I look for the Google about everything about Charlie, and I want to know about the house, about what happened here, and I saw the internet and Sukhumvit 4, and I want to go there.
Le moment le plus terrifiant pour moi, ça a été quand je me suis retrouvée dans l'ascenseur avec quand ils m'ont ramené à la maison. On était tous les 3 dans cette petite cabine et mon cœur battait la chamade. Je l'entendais moi-même, mon cœur. Et j'étais sûre qu'il l'entendait aussi. Et que si j'avais mon cœur qui battait comme ça, c'est que j'avais quelque chose sur la conscience. Donc j'avais peur.
I was annoyed, but what can they do? Nobody can blame me. No, nobody. Nobody blame me because I did my best, and I saved the police department face because the transportation make a mess.
Nobody has ever caught me. I expected to feel great guilt. I did not. I felt free.
A broken-down boat carrying 57 Rohingya refugees landed on Indonesia's western coast after a month at sea. Take a look.
Yeah, Myanmar. You want to go to? Malaysia. Just want to go to Malaysia. So? How long you in the sea? How long you in your boat?
I just know.
No, 1 month?
Yeah.
1 month?
Wooden vessel with 57 men on board arrived around 8 a.m. local time on a beach in the westernmost Aceh province. 4 of the men on board were sick and had been transported to a hospital. Telamay Zulsiatri, the head of the local immigration police, said the refugees will be temporarily housed at a local government facility. This is the 3rd Rohingya refugee boat to arrive in the Muslim-majority Indonesia in recent months. 2 boats carrying a total of 229 Rohingya landed in Aceh on November 15 and 16, according to the UN Refugee Agency. Thousands of the mostly Muslim Rohingya, heavily persecuted in Buddhist-majority Myanmar, risk their lives each year on long, expensive sea journeys, often in poor-quality vessels, in an attempt to reach Malaysia or Indonesia. 7 Indonesian families whose relatives died or were injured in one of the worst stadium disasters in football history are suing officials they consider responsible, according to their lawyer on Friday. The civil lawsuit targets 8 parties, including Indonesia's Football Association, the National Police League organizer PT Liga Indonesia Baru, and the owners of Malang Football Club Arema FC. Indonesian President Joko Widodo is also listed as a co-defendant. The stampede in the Javan city of Malang in October left 135 people dead, including more than 40 children. It has been primarily blamed on an excessive use of tear gas by police, according to preliminary investigation. The Philippines should continue observing and monitoring the coronavirus situation in China. That is according to an infectious disease expert. At the Laging Handa public briefing, Dr. Ron Jean Solante stressed its importance considering that a possible widespread spike of COVID cases in China may pose a global implication. Take a look.
Kung ano talaga ang situation ngayon sa China, because that is an information that we don't have very accurate info at this point in time. Now, in the event na kung talaga mag-declare ang China na meron na silang big wave of this COVID infection, then I think hindi lang sa Philippines ang magiging implikasyon yan. No? It will have a global implications also because China is a big country with a very big place in the economic arena. No? At maraming travelers yan. We need to observe further, we need to study, if we need to do a border control, but I think that will be one of the possibilities na kung kailangan man natin, we have to look into that in terms of meron bang advantage or merong disadvantage.
Meanwhile, in another development, China will no longer publish daily figures for its cases, COVID cases and deaths, according to the National Health Commission on Sunday, ending a practice that began in early 2020. Beijing last week admitted the scale of the outbreak has become impossible to track following the end of mandatory mass testing. Last week, China also narrowed the criteria by which COVID-19 fatalities were counted, a move experts said would suppress the number of fatalities attributable to the virus. Under China's new definition of COVID deaths, only those who die of respiratory failure and not pre-existing conditions exacerbated by the virus are counted. Only 6 COVID deaths have been reported since Beijing unwound most of its restrictions. Beijing hospitals are under strain with many elderly patients filling the wards and waiting areas as China battles a fresh wave of COVID infections. China this month has rapidly dismantled key pillars of its zero COVID strategy, doing away with snap lockdowns, lengthy quarantines, and travel curbs in a jarring reversal of its hallmark containment strategy. First, let's listen in.
WHO is very concerned over the evolving situation in China, with increasing reports of severe disease. In order to make a comprehensive risk assessment of the situation on the ground, WHO needs more detailed information on disease severity, hospital admissions, and requirements for ICU support.
At the same time, it's also very important for all countries, including China, to focused on people getting vaccinated, making testing and treatment available, and importantly, sharing information with the world about what they're experiencing.
With the COVID situation entering a new phase, we have taken the initiative to refine the response measures to make them more up-to-date scientifically, more targeted and more effective. The State Council's Joint Prevention and Control Mechanism has held several press conferences on this. We have seen rising vaccination rates, strengthened treatment capacity, and expanded production capacity of medical supplies, which at the moment are generally in adequate supply. China's COVID situation is on the whole predictable and under control. We believe that with the concerted efforts of the Chinese people, we will soon enter a new stage of stable and orderly social economic growth. China has always shared information responsibly with the WHO and the international community. We stand ready to work with the world in solidarity to better tackle the COVID challenge, protect people's life and health, and jointly restore steady economic growth and build a global community of health for all.
Cities across the country have struggled to cope as surging infections have emptied pharmacy shelves, filled hospital wards, and appear to cause backlogs at crematoriums and funeral homes. And that's all the time we have for you tonight. As my usual habit, I'd like to end the day on a positive note. Let's encourage and build each other up so that no one is left behind. And that's it for tonight's broadcast of ASEAN in Focus. I'm Alma Angeles. Stay in the news because we live in extraordinary times. Good night.